The idea that all generic drugs are created equal has long been a reassuring belief for patients and healthcare providers alike. But a troubling new study challenges that assumption in ways that can't be ignored. According to the research, generic medications manufactured in India are significantly more likely to be linked with severe adverse events, including hospitalizations, long-term disability, and even death, than the same drugs made in the United States. And while the pharmaceutical industry has often emphasized cost savings and bioequivalence, this study forces a hard look at what those savings might actually be costing in terms of patient safety. The findings are especially unsettling because they deal with medications that have already been widely accepted and integrated into treatment regimens. These aren't experimental drugs, they're mature generics, often trusted for years and assumed to be safe based on FDA approval standards. But what the study shows is that the origin of these drugs matters, far more than most people realize. In fact, the researchers found a staggering 54% increase in serious adverse events tied to Indian-made generics when compared directly with their US-made equivalents. The implications of that are hard to overstate. These are not small statistical blips. They represent real-world consequences for patients who may not even be aware of where their medications come from. What makes this study especially compelling and concerning is its methodology. The researchers were able to overcome a major transparency barrier. The FDA does not disclose manufacturing locations for generic drugs, and even refuses to release that information through Freedom of Information Act requests. But by creatively mining an obscure dataset known as structured product labeling, the team managed to trace drugs back to the actual plants where they were made. That level of specificity allowed for a true apples-to-apples comparison. Same active ingredient, same dosage form, same administration route. The only variable? Where the drug was manufactured. And the outcome was clear. Location mattered, often with life-or-death consequences. The reasons behind these discrepancies in drug safety are likely multifaceted, but some of the biggest red flags point to regulatory gaps. In the US, drug manufacturing plants are subject to unannounced FDA inspections, which allow regulators to see how operations run under typical conditions. But overseas, particularly in India, inspections are scheduled in advance, giving companies time to prepare, hide potential problems, or temporarily improve conditions. That structural weakness in enforcement means that drugs passing quality inspections may only be meeting short-term, superficial standards, not the rigorous, consistent ones we assume exist. There's also a disturbing economic dimension to this issue. Older generics tend to become cheaper over time, driving fierce competition among manufacturers. This race to the bottom may lead to cost-cutting in operations and sourcing that directly impacts drug quality. In a global supply chain, quality assurance becomes not just a logistical challenge, but a moral one, especially when lower-income or medically vulnerable populations are more likely to rely on generics as their only affordable option. It's important to acknowledge that not all Indian manufacturers are producing substandard drugs, just as not all US facilities are faultless. But the systemic issue revealed by this research is one of oversight and transparency, or the lack thereof. Patients have no way of knowing where their medications come from or how well they were made, and that absence of information puts everyone at risk. Even healthcare providers, who aim to make informed treatment decisions, are largely in the dark when it comes to drug origin and production quality. What this study ultimately reveals is not just a disparity in outcomes, but a failure in how we regulate and inform. The FDA's current policies, while designed to protect public health, appear to fall short when it comes to offshore manufacturing. The fact that so many severe adverse events could be traced back to a single variable, the country of origin, should be enough to prompt immediate policy changes. But until that happens, patients are left exposed, relying on a system that may not be protecting them as well as it claims to. In the end, this isn't a story about whether generics are good or bad. It's a warning about how easily safety can be compromised when transparency is lacking and regulation is inconsistent. It's a reminder that the label on the bottle may not tell the whole story, and that the true cost of a cheap drug may not be measured in dollars, but in lives.